This week on the ReaderCon podcast,
I would say writers write and writers read.
Welcome to ReaderCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, best-selling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Rene Gutteridge, best-selling author of over 30 novels and screenplays.
Hey there, writers. I'm joined today, as usual, by our sound engineer, Jesse Ulrich, and Rene Gutteridge. Rene, we're in the crunch phase of preparing for ReaderCon, but I think you're also working on a movie project, aren't you?
Well, you know what? I've gotten smart and I've started like clearing out my schedule before on so that I have some space and time to focus on it. So that's the new me this year, 2023.
That's a smart. I don't think people come to the conference. Okay, now it sounds like I'm bragging a little bit because I am, and they see how smoothly it runs and they think, oh, well, I could do that. And it doesn't turn out as well. I don't think people realize how much preparation goes into, it's like the cliche they used to say about the violinist who's so good he makes it look easy. I think you in particular, Rene, make all that pitching and manuscript review stuff look easy when it's anything but.
Let me just say, folks who are listening, Bill works so hard on this year round and makes everything look smooth and easy and works really hard for all of you. So I'm doing my part in the team, but Bill, you're really extraordinary working on this. So thank you for all your hard work.
Well, I love this conference, and it seems to me it just gets bigger and better every year. Jesse, I understand you have a new member in your family. Is that working out? And more importantly, are you bringing Spot to ReaderCon?
Listen, it'll be very hard to not bring him, considering how attached we are to the little guy. Yeah. But no, he'll probably be staying home. Hopefully, by then, him and Ahsoka will have bonded and not just stare at each other across hallways. So we're hoping for that, which was happening right before we left town, and then we separated them again. So who knows? We'll probably start back from zero when we get back into town.
Ahsoka's also a cat, right?
Ahsoka's also a cat, yes.
And they didn't immediately start rubbing noses? Or
no, they did not. Ahsoka we adopted from the University of Tulsa that has like a collection of feral cats, and she is very, does not like change. So it's going to take a little while, but they're both very sweet. So.
All right. Well, our interview today is with Janene MacIvor, senior editor with Thomas Nelson Publishers, and specifically for HarperCollins Christian Publishing. And for 15 years before that, she did freelance management. She did all kinds of editing and proofreading. She has 5 children and 6 grandchildren which bring her, to quote her, immeasurable joy. And she loves sharing the world of literature with them. She has so much insight for writers. I'm just telling you, this is a terrific interview, and we'll share that with you, but after the news segment. So, Jesse, take us away. Well, it's official. KKR is, in fact, buying Simon & Schuster. I actually held back on this when the first murmurs arose because I thought, haven't we been down this road before? I wanted to make sure it is actually happening, but it is. This private equity firm, KKR, that's short for Kohlberg, Kravis, Roberts and Company, is paying $1.62 billion in cash for Simon & Schuster. So it's a bargain. Remember, Jesse, we were talking about how if we could just scrape together $2 billion, we could buy this. But turns out it didn't even take that much. Anyway, as some of you who have been listening to the podcast for a while will remember, Simon & Schuster first went up for sale 3 years ago, I think. And at first it looked like Penguin Random House, the largest publisher in the English-speaking world, was going to buy them for $2.2 billion, but that didn't happen because the Department of Justice said no. And this purchase will also have to go through regulatory review, but given that it's being bought by KKR and the company is still going to function as a standalone publisher rather than making the biggest bigger, I don't see any reason why they would object to that. It looks like we're still going to have a big five. It's just that one of the five got a completely different owner. Rene, do you think this will have a big impact on the book industry?
I mean, I honestly have no idea. It's interesting, but I guess I don't know exactly what impact it would make. But again, when we start off a story with private equity firm, that's when it's already over my head. So I don't know. Well, Jesse might have a better idea. Jesse, any thoughts?
I mean, listen, for maybe the second time in history, maybe a private equity firm buying a book-related thing will actually help because, you know, most of the time when a private equity firm buys a thing, it's not good. But the private equity firm that bought Barnes & Noble has been doing pretty good.
Right.
So
I thought they were toast, and look what happened.
Yeah. So let's hope. I mean, it's good that it's now merging with another publishing company, thus removing competition and whatnot. Right. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for now.
Well, that's what everybody was predicting. Big Five becomes Big Four, and there are fewer places agents can send books and whatnot, but it doesn't seem to have happened that way. And the only difference I can see is that, it reinforces why do we continue to call these New York publishing houses? Because none of them is owned ultimately by a New York entity. They have offices there, but I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. To me, it's like New York pizza. New York always assumes theirs is best, but it's really not. The pizza connoisseur.
Listen, I will say that
argue.
I would like to argue that fact, but like pizza and bagels are different from books and how books are published. So, like you don't want to have make Barry come on this podcast and yell at you about New York pizza. So.
And yet there he is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, getting bagels from a place that's called New York Bagel, but isn't.
Listen, that's fair. Listen, it's the best bagel we have, all right? It's our only option.
Okay.
So.
News story number 2, a feud over, you knew it was going to come, AI, artificial intelligence book cover. And this book cover has authors basically at one another's throat. This arose last week with this testy online back and forth between two writers and a writer and a publisher, leaving one author, to use her own words, in a state of absolute devastation. This feud centered around cover art used for a book called The Stricken, a novel authored by Morgan Shamey. Shaman teased the book in a video last July, showing off its cover art, which is basically a woman standing with her eyes closed, overlaid over a fictional city's skyline. With all respect to the author, I will say this is not the most original concept for a cover. You've all seen it many times. I think I've used it a couple times in other people's books that I've published, but at any rate, the cover has been found to have been created largely with artificial intelligence, at least according to another novelist, Rebecca Kenney. And she said so online and called out the publisher, a company called Camcat, for being, quote, harmful to the creative community. And there's other stuff I won't get into, but it doesn't get nicer or better as they go back and forth with all this complaining and accusations. And this poor author who didn't know until somebody starts harassing online. Camcat, the publisher, has said there was information. They initially insisted that the cover was, quote, created by a talented artist who worked meticulously to capture the essence of the story, but they later clarified, there are those snicker quotes again, they later clarified that its authors regularly use stock images in their work and conceded that most covers are not original illustrations. And this is not at all the first time this has happened. Jesse, I suppose this is inevitable. All those images are out there, and there are all these image generating programs now, though I doubt that these flame wars are going to fix anything. Is there a way authors can prevent this from happening to them?
It's honestly just vigilance, I guess. You have to keep track of everything associated with their name. It's just another thing in sort of the author's playbook of people they have to have on staff now, is someone to just watch for these sort of things. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Internet, but Wizards of the Coast got in trouble for a recent D&D source book that had AI images on it, but it was the illustrator using AI stuff as a sort of starting point to save themselves work, and so both the company and the artist got in trouble. So you just have to, we have to build tools to monitor and check these things, and we also just have to always be on alert now, just like with everything else.
Can I throw something in here?
Sure.
Because I have an opinion about all this. Let me warn writers how this will affect you if you are using AI. I've already heard people using AI programs as writing prompts to start something, to generate an idea, to start generating whatever in your head. And if you use any portion of that in what you write, you are probably going to find that elsewhere in somebody else's writing as well. You're either taking from something, possibly from another author who's published, or you may find yourself in this same situation with this cover art thing. So I'm an advocate for not using AI at all as a writer. I think we are creative enough ourselves, but you see how this illustrator got in trouble. I'm just going to start with it and then use my own talent.
Right.
And this is going to be a huge mess. And if you keep yourself out of it, then you don't have to worry. And if you throw yourself into it and start using AI to help yourself in any kind of writing, you're going to be embroiled in something. So anyway, that's just a fun cautionary note from your favorite neighborhood writer.
I think that's great advice. Thanks. All right, Jesse, cue up the music. Let's talk to Janene MacIvor. Janene, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Okay, traditional first question. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
It might be a two-pronged piece of advice.
That's cheating. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I would say writers write and writers read.
Pretty dead on it. And you can't do it if you're not doing both,
Absolutely.
Regularly, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you again for being on this podcast. It's been a while since we had an editor from a major publishing house on the show. How do you describe your work? What do you do?
Well, on any two given projects, my job might be different. But if I take a book from bringing it into the team, pitching it to our ed board, we get a book contract signed. Then the next step, I work with the author. I wait for the manuscript is what I do next. But when the manuscripts come in, then it goes through a substantive or a developmental edit, depending on what shape it's in. And if it's in great shape, that might not take a month. If it's in not so great shape, we might even hire a writer for the author. So there's no two books that are exactly alike in the editorial process. But let's say this book, you send a book and you're a rock star author, so it takes about a month to go through the developmental and the substantive to where we're both happy with it. And then that would be passed off to a copy editor. And our team hires mostly freelance. We do have a professional copy editor as part of our team. So sometimes if she has the bandwidth, it will stay in-house for the copy edit. Then from the copy edit, we style it for typesetting. The typesetter produces pages. First pass, first pages, depending on what lingo is being used. Those pages go to 2 or 3 proofers. We hire out of house freelance. We work through vendors. it's changed somewhat. I've been in-house for 13 years now. And when I first came in-house, the in-house editor, hired directly the freelancers. So we had a lot of relationships. Since then, because of some legal issues, we've moved to hiring only through vendors. So we have 5 vendors. I have an editorial coordinator who reports to me. She's a rock star in all the technology and organizing. If she would only come to my home and file my things for me, I would be happy. But I don't think I could afford her. But she reaches out to the vendors, hires all of our freelancers, so that there's no legal confusion as to that these freelancers should be being paid as full-time workers and have all the benefits. So it just keeps getting more and more complicated, right. But that's the world we live in.
Well, let me follow up on something you said, if I may, because you seem to indicate that you're actually acquiring some books that still need a lot of work. And I would have thought a big house like yours, that's just never going to happen, but not true?
Not true, due to the fact that platform has been king for the last few years. And so,
tell me what that means.
Well, that the social media, it's huge numbers, and we're talking not 5,000, we're talking 50,000 and up, and really looking for those in the 6-figure. Also, speaking engagements, what our marketing department and sales department need to have some assurance that they're going to be able to sell this book, sell enough copies that they can recoup. And, we're also not talking 5,000 copies. We're looking for sales of 30,000 plus to be able to break even. So that's something that I often, when I'm talking to prospective authors or someone who would like to, move to the book proposal and have us take a look, often they have 1,000 followers, and that's great. Mm-hmm. That is a lot of people, but not enough to go with the,
So to summarize, what I'm hearing is if someone's got a good enough platform, you're willing to work with a manuscript that may not be ready for prime time yet.
Yes, that would be a very concise answer.
Sorry, I'm a bottom line guy.
That's okay. When we receive a proposal, and we receive almost 99.99% come through agents, but if we receive a proposal and one of the lead editors, one of us who is out there doing some acquiring, and I've been there long enough, that's not my main emphasis, but I have brought a few books in. And the lead editor or the acquisition editor reviews the proposal and thinks there's something that our team could do with it, then that has to go to the associate publisher and the publisher. And if they agree that it can be taken to the larger editorial team, we call it Ed Board, and it's all of the editors on my team plus marketing people, our VP of marketing and whoever is available, marketing and publicity. Mm-hmm. We are sent the proposal, we read it, hopefully there's sample writing, but not always. Then we vote on it. And the 3 pieces that we're looking at and voting on from 1 to 5 are concept. Those come in waves. We'll get the same concept from 8 different authors, and obviously we only want 1. Or we might have, we also look at, is this something we need on our list? So we look at concept, we look at the writing, and we look at platform. If the platform is just amazing and our marketing is like drooling over it, then if we ask for a writing sample, if there isn't one, or the writing sample is poor, we'll suggest a writer. And then that's part of the negotiations.
Well, I think this lends itself to something I was going to comment on, which I don't think most people realize how very large and how diverse the Christian publishing world really is. Can you kind of describe for us just the range of books that you have there that Thomas Nelson publishes?
Well, Thomas Nelson, we're under News Corp is the big umbrella. Uncle Rupert.
Right.
And then we come to HarperCollins. And then under HarperCollins, not that they're less than, but it's just the umbrella, HarperCollins Christian Publishing, HCCP. And there are two main branches there, Zondervan, Thomas Nelson. Used to be rivals, now we're one big happy family. And
do you bid against each other?
We do.
Oh.
We have in-house bids, and those are not really fun. But
no, but not.
That's just part of the game. But we have on my team. We don't do fiction. HCCP has a fiction arm, a very strong fiction arm. But for nonfiction, we have Nelson Books, my team. We have W Publishing, another Nelson Books team. And then over with Zondervan, there's Zondervan Books. So we have tried to be able to separate out what we do. It ain't happened. We all do pretty much the same thing. And it will come in waves. Sometimes we're the Nelson Books is publishing celebrities. Sometimes W seems to be publishing celebrities. Sometimes Zondervan is publishing celebrities. So there's no hard and fast line. If someone's written a nonfiction book and there's faith-based content, we want to look at it.
Well, our regular listeners know already that I'm going to bring up ReaderCon at some point. And of course, you've graciously agreed to appear at ReaderCon to speak and take pitches and so forth. I know you're traveling a long way to be here. Do you enjoy conferences? What do you get out of it?
I do. I always learn something new, and I love reading fiction, so I like to sit in and listen to what's going on in that world. Yeah. Maybe it's because I work on nonfiction, but it's true for most of my fellow editors on the nonfiction team. They read a lot of fiction because it takes us out of our work brain.
Sure.
And just the energy to see that there are new people out there that have books in them and they want to contribute. And it's not hard for me to take pitches because if God's put a book on someone's heart, do it. In today's world, if we can't do it, I can't offer false hope that it would pass our standards. Probably not, but we might find the next big thing. I'm not ever going to eliminate that possibility. But for today's writers, if God's given them a message, there's so many ways to publish. So I appreciate that ReaderCon gives them the options, the self-publishing, the small independent publishers. Because in our world today, because I think due to the technology, if you have a book, there's no reason not to publish. You just have to find what lane you're going to publish in.
Right.
I really appreciate that kind of encouragement for our aspiring authors. I love that.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are publishers looking for these days? Do you have something in mind?
We're always looking for a fresh, unique concept. We're always looking for a fresh, unique voice. We'll get something in, and we do passion projects sometimes where we'll plead with our publisher, I believe in this book. I really want to work. Let's grow this person. So that does happen.
Nice.
Infrequently, but it does.
Sure.
And I would say, it's difficult to find. There's nothing new under the sun. So to find a fresh concept with a fresh voice is no small thing.
You mentioned agents a minute ago, and I think that most of your pitches come from. Can you just walk us through, because I think there are some people who might be interested, how do you pitch a book to Thomas Nelson?
Get a good agent who works with us. And I can't recommend agents. That's a big deal. But I always encourage a prospective author to look at people that have published with us that they like, that are in their lane, that connect with them and look on the copyright page. Most of the time there's an agency. There's a little blurb that will give it, and then reach out to that agent. There's also lists of Christian agents you can go to, and if someone will do the legwork, they can find a list of what authors does this agent work with. Does that sound like I would be a good fit for them? Because that is another big jump. Agents are very busy, and a lot of the good agents aren't taking new people. So.
Right. But numerous good agents will be at ReaderCon. See, I just did it again. Again.
But you're right. I know some of the agents that you have, and absolutely some of those we work with. So.
Well, maybe we can seat the two of you together, and the agents can just point to you, or you can point to them. That's the way it would work, right?
I have to be very careful there, but yes. But they will be sharing who they work with, right?
Yes.
The agents can, so they could say we work with HarperCollins. So that would work. But I'm very excited. I'm excited to visit with the attendees who might. It's always fun.
I agree.
Well, that was really good advice, I think. I appreciate that. And you've been at Thomas Nelson since 2011? Is that about right?
That's about right. I freelanced for about 15 years before that.
Before that?
So I joined a team that were already my friends. And that was one of the things I said. It's a long story I won't share here, but when I agreed to the job, I said I would only do this if you promise it won't affect our friendship, because friends and relationships, and in our business, they're really important, and personally they're very precious to me. So
I love that. Well, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen there since you've started working there?
Well, I mentioned the freelance. That's a big change, because that puts someone right in between direct relationship.
True.
We can't ask for the freelancer we really want on a project, which we used to be able to select. But we have ways we can list, in order when we're requesting three different ones, and our vendors know we want that first one if we can get her or him. I would say for me that I feel the weight of the large corporation more now than I did when,
really?
I came in right before Harper bought.
Okay.
Yes.
So I've been seeing those changes and aligning up with the way New York does things, because they operate differently than we do. So that would probably be the biggest change right now. As anyone who's watching the news, book publishing, it's hard, it's tough.
Yes.
COVID did a number. Our paper prices, printing prices, binding prices, I'm sure both of you are aware of that, I have just skyrocketed. And that, we've raised our retail prices to help with that, but it does affect how we're buying books. We have to be way more cautious than ever. We're also not paying as much as we did, because we've got to make money. So
absolutely.
Now
everybody's feeling that.
I want to encourage. Now this happened when I first came in. I probably happened in 2012, maybe 13. But Bob Goff is an author that a lot of people will be familiar with. I think Love Does, Everybody Always. And he came to us through Donald Miller, Blue Like Jazz, which had blown the sky off. And so that does happen. If you have a good friend who's a famous author or a successful author, use that relationship.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. Hey, so I know you've worked on a lot of books. Do you have any favorites? Or I shouldn't use favorites, because I'm sure all of your authors are your favorites. But are there a few books that stand out that you're proudest of?
I love working with Bob Goff. I love working with Max Lucado. This was his newest book. I love working with Lisa Turkhurst in Proverbs 31. Those are some of the highlights. I love all of my authors. And sometimes the ones that I love are the ones that were the most difficult. The ones I just mentioned, the authors I just mentioned, are not difficult. With the exception to track Bob down, who is very upfront that he's ADHD, that can be a challenge.
So working with difficult authors, do you think? I noticed in your bio you mentioned you have 5 children, 6 grandchildren. Do you think do you often feel like mom when you're trying to corral people and get them to do the right thing for you?
Absolutely. And there is some of that mothering, the nurturing that you have to do. And
that makes complete sense to me.
Yes.
Do you have time for family? What's your workday like? It sounds to me like you'd be very busy, but surely, how do you balance that?
When I first came in-house, I was going to the office in-house every day. And so those were my boundaries. I was homeschooling. I homeschooled all my children as well. That's why I freelanced for 15 years. But when I was a little bit more freed up, I was able to come in-house. I actually, it dovetailed with the birth of my first grandson. So that was their pitch to me. I was living in Oklahoma City, and I was there for the birth of Rains Wilder. And an editor left, and they said, could you come? And my team asked me to come and fill in and just cover. I said, sure. And then they said, well, throw your hat in the ring, no promises, but you seem to be enjoying this. We love you. Let's see what might happen. And long story short, they hired me. Wow. So I had finished, my youngest was in college at the time, so I was able to do that. Now I have 8 grandchildren. So I have to work
up to 8. Nice.
8. But I'm fully remote, and that's for COVID. That did a good thing for me, because I have so much flexibility. I can travel. I can work up in Marquette, Michigan, or in Oklahoma City.
Okay, so you've been in this business a long time. You were freelancing for like 15 years. You've been in the corporate world for 12 or so. You got any survival tips for writers who might also like to have a long and storied career as you have?
Well, as a Christian, I say pray, be on your knees, pray a lot. And I don't mean that tritely. I really mean that. Especially depending on, I think my God is a creative God. So your writers and authors are right there in his lane. And because of that, if you're writing some of the material that my team deals with, there can be some opposition, and we have to encourage our authors to press through, keep going, keep writing. And I would say for fiction, whatever, I think you're moving in God's creativity. So I really do think prayer is huge. And I do think I'm not a very organized person. I tend to work more whenever the Spirit moves me. Whenever the creativity comes. So I would say everyone needs to find their own rhythm, but to absolutely, if you have a family and are blessed with that, don't sacrifice that. That has to be put priority, and then the other will follow. I love my children are proud of what I do, and that means more to me than anything.
That's
possibly fantastic. More than my paycheck, but I'm not sure.
Very nice. That was
tough
beautiful.
Competition. Yeah, lovely answer. Janene, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really a joy to have you here.
Thank you for the invitation, Bill. And I love meeting you, Lara, and I'll see you.
I look forward to meeting in person. Yes.
We're just a few weeks away. Yeah. Well.
Now, do you see what I did? I got ReaderCon.
We just can't say it enough.
Yes.
It's going to be such a party.
No, I'm really looking forward to it.
Great. We'll see you then. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, I know I've talked about ReaderCon a lot. So let me also mention for those of you who may be within range of Oklahoma City that on September 4th, Monday, which is the actual Labor Day, we're holding ReaderCon. And ReaderCon is completely free and open to the public. You'll have a chance to hear many authors talk about their work and autograph books, including our headliners, Lisa Gardner, and Tosca Lee, plus so much fun stuff. In addition to all the author panels and autographing and book sales, we're going to have a book-themed costume contest. You can come as your favorite Harry Potter. Jesse, I'm not even going to guess. What's your go-to cosplay costume?
Oh, God. I mean, Sherlock Holmes is kind of the easiest.
Yeah, I got that one.
And all the
And I
ones
can do the
like,
fourth Doctor, but what's
There
your
you go.
favorite?
Oh man, that one's hard. Like literary cosplay.
Yeah.
That one's gonna take me a moment because
All right, think on it.
yeah,
There'll be a
think on
costume contest. There'll be a mystery to solve, puzzles, a spelling bee, Jeopardy. Did I mention food trucks? I think I said that last time, but I'm really excited about the food trucks and rescue animals. Spot. You could come home with a friend for Spot, Jesse. I'm just saying.
I could. Yeah.
There's so
That's all we
many
need.
chances, to buy books, get them autographed, and meet some of your favorite authors. And did I say this? It's free. So come join us for ReaderCon. If you want more information about this, go to our website, which is writercon.com. Then click on the button at the top that says ReaderCon. The website is writercon.com, writercon.com. All right? Until next time, keep writing, and remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.